All right, Father. Well, there's been a lot of talk lately about banning, restricting the traditional Latin Mass. I know you're a traditional priest and you have a great love. You celebrate the traditional Latin Mass every day.
Hmm.
Why would it be that from the 1500s, the Protestants, their sights were on the traditional Latin Mass? Even the Jansenists wanted to modify, change the traditional Mass. And then since the 1950s, repeatedly, even today, it's always coming back to the traditional Latin Mass. Are we overemphasizing the traditional Latin Mass, or is there something special with regard to the external form in the liturgy, and especially for our time when we see what's basically looks like the Great Apostasy?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, just to kind of unpack your question a little bit, I think that I mean, obviously, anytime you have heresy involved in some degree or another, you end up with this dynamic where there becomes a distaste for things that are sacred that would express those things that are contrary to the heresy. The late Monsignor Eugene Cavan, I don't know if you ever heard about him, he was actually one of the people that was involved in the whole thing at Catholic University of America when they were having that battle over contraception.
Right.
And when he was there, but he was a teacher of mine at one point, and he said that, ultimately what it really boils down to is that modernists have a hatred for the sacred. And I think that's what we're actually seeing. So they actually want to stamp out the traditional Mass. They can't understand because of their visceral reaction to it, which I do have a bit of a psychological analysis of that, which I'd be happy to provide, but they have a visceral attitude towards anything that is sacred, and that includes the traditional Latin Mass. So I think historically, I think that's part of the genesis for it. I the about this was probably about 15 years ago, maybe it's a little bit less than that, maybe 10. Father Richard McBrien of I would say of happy memory, but I would not be being honest. When he had written this article, and he actually had said that the fact that all these young people were starting to be attracted to the traditional Latin Mass was not a good thing, and that they had to do something about this to put an end to it. And when I saw that, I began to realize that the generation that ushered in the changes in the last 40 to 50 years are extraordinarily attached to these things. It's ironic that even when the church is literally imploding, they can't see any kind of causal connection between their ideas, what they begot, and the fact that the church is declining. They literally can't see that you'll know the fruits, the tree by its fruits, and they literally they refuse to admit that actual connection. That look, what they begot is actually causing a decline in the church. And so I think that it dawned on me as I was reading McBrien's article, because this is about the time when I was doing quite a bit of writing in the area of the liturgy. I realized these guys, when it comes down to when they start getting older and they realize that the traditional movement is going to keep having momentum, and I think there's reasons for that, but it's going to keep having momentum, it's going to keep building, they're going to get more and more draconian as they go along because of the fact that that's the only way they're going to be able to get a handle on it, especially as myself and others have been writing, Kwasniewski and a number of other different people have been writing consistently about the traditional Latin Mass and its the benefits of it, etc. What's happening is that the intellectual framework to support the traditional Latin Mass, but then also point out the deficiencies in the ordinary form of the new Mass. What's happening is that intellectually they don't have a leg to stand on in the debate. So it's going to ultimately boil down to power. They're going to be able to draconianly enforce it. So the fact that recently that they said that the young people shouldn't be going to this Mass, they should restrict young people from going to this Mass. It tells you they're scared in a sense.
Right.
They're afraid that if this thing is given freedom, they know it's going to take back over because they're already seeing it actually happening. And even with the whole COVID thing, there's this mushrooming. All the traditional Latin Mass parishes many of them have doubled in size in the last year. And I don't think it's just because of the COVID. I think that the real reason, which is actually part of an article which I wrote called "The Merit of a Mass," it's actually It's illegally, in violation of copyright, actually available at the University of Arizona's servers, ironically. But they in there I talk about how if you take the objective, I don't mean to be going on too long here, but if you take the objective criteria for what determines objective value and therefore the merit when somebody performs that action of the rites, it's pretty clear that the old rites actually are going to be more meritorious, if for no other reason than the general theological principle of prayer begets what it signifies. What you ask for is what you're going to get. Well, they stripped a lot of that out of the new rite. They took all that. They basically desacralized the language and the prayers, etc. They removed a lot of the supernatural aspects to it, and then they wonder why it's a bit anemic. And I think that this is one of the reasons why I think the old Mass is actually better than the new. So I think that it's something which, as things go, as time goes on, I think it's going to become more and more of a dividing line in the church between the people who want an authentic Catholic life and those who just want something comfortable, ultimately.